We've been going through a series of videos, uh, live streams, where we are talking about how to travel this journey to forgiveness. This is all part of our forgiveness intensive that we've been focusing on, because I really believe that this is part of the key for us to move forward once we've experienced a hurt or disappointment or betrayal. And today, what we're going to be talking about is step 4. And in order to move forward towards forgiveness, we have to move past our initial reactions to that hurt and disappointment, betrayal, and begin to feel the feelings that will help us to get unstuck. So we're going to talk more about that in just a moment. We'll be right back. Hello, Karen. How you doing today?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Good. So I appreciate you joining me for this
hmm
broadcast on how to feel your feelings. You've had to kind of like work through some of those feelings yourself in your life
Yeah.
with the hurt and betrayal that you have experienced. And
hmm
one of the things about those feelings is that it's not like we just get past them and they never bubble up again.
Yeah.
What has your experience been?
Well, it kind of comes in waves, I think. And there's times
Mm,
where, like, you think, "Oh, I'm good. I've gotten past that," and then, something kind of derails you
triggers you.
all over
Yeah.
again. Like, you get reminded of it, and kind of find
Mm,
yourself right back in the emotional hot seat again.
yeah. Yeah. What I have found in my own situation is that if I just continue to revisit the choices that I've made about forgiving, that I find myself that I don't stay stuck in that loop.
hmm
Immediately following the hurt or the betrayal is that it becomes all consuming and we just are stuck in rumination, you know,
hmm
like a hamster on a
Yeah.
wheel. It just goes over and over and over in your head, and that you go to sleep at night, and then first thing you think about when you wake up is that again, and it
Yeah.
just haunts you all day long. But the way to get past that is
Yeah.
through forgiveness. But in order to forgive, what we have to do is we need to, I guess, have the courage to feel our feelings. So I have some slides here that I want to walk through, and let me see if I can get the right one up now because I'm really afraid. I had all this figured out just a minute ago, but let's see if this is it. There it is. Okay, I happened to select the right one. So there's a lot of buttons to push, and it gets confusing when you're trying to make the presentation and run all of the tech at the same time. I feel like one of these guys who's patting his head and rubbing his tubby at the same time. So we're talking about feeling our feelings, and this is all part of the 10 steps that we have identified on the journey to forgiveness. Now, this is not written in stone. That there are other ways to think about the journey of forgiveness. But after thinking about this for a long time, I wanted to break it down as clearly as possible that I could for the
hmm
folks that I'm seeking to help guide along in the process. So I came up with these 10, and hopefully that they're understandable. That we are talking here right now on step 4. So previously we talked about choosing to forgive. And that's so liberating to realize that forgiveness is a choice rather than an emotion, you know,
Yeah.
because we can really get stuck because a lot of times we don't feel like we want to forgive the other person or people, you know.
Right.
So. But so then we have to examine ourselves, and we talked about that previously, and I'm not going to go ahead and go through all of that. We have a series of these videos, and I'm going to post a link to where you can find all of these so that you don't have to kind of like hunt for them, in different places. And then identify their offenses and your losses. And then today, what we're talking about is feeling your feelings. So let's just go through this. I'll read the first slide here, and then Karen, you can read the next one. Forgiveness does not mean ignoring your feelings. It does not mean pretending your feelings do not exist. Forgiveness means feeling your feelings, including all the strong and scary ones. Hey, by the way, and let me just interrupt myself here for a moment, but what are some of the strong and scary feelings that we oftentimes have when we have been hurt?
Yeah. So a loss of, or like a feeling of anger, I think, is a
Mm-hmm.
very initial one. Sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's also things like feeling betrayed and feeling
Yeah.
uh, lonely and
Mm-hmm.
isolated.
Yeah. Yeah. Feeling resentment, feeling hatred.
Yeah,
These are powerful emotions. And so
right.
and so we tend to kind of like avoid feeling those feelings. But,
Hmm.
um, but the only way that we can really move past is to realize that those feelings will not destroy us. We have to work through those, however. We have to process them. So the next slide here, Karen, if you'll read that.
Yeah, so forgiveness means that we dare to feel our anger, hatred, bitterness, and sadness. Then we choose to release these in the sea of forgiveness. When we forgive, we choose to experience life on the other side of our pain and loss. We cannot go back to the way things were before we were hurt, and we don't want to waste the rest of our lives in the desert of our anger and bitterness. Forgiveness takes us to a better place where life can be good again.
Yeah. So that's why we call this program Beyond Betrayal, because I am convinced, I'm 100% convinced that that first of all, I'm 100% convinced that as what Jesus says in John 16:33, he says, "In this world will have trouble," and that means some very deep and painful trouble.
Hmm.
But he also says in that very same verse that in me you can find peace, and there is a way to do that by not only connecting with Jesus, but also seeking to process our losses, like he says, that blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Matthew 5:4. So we can get on the other side of it, but we are never going to get on the other side of it if we just stay stuck,
Yeah.
you know, in the pain and the rehearsing of that pain over and over. So let's read the next slide that we have here. So forgiveness makes it possible for us to feel feelings we may have lost. Feelings like relief, peace, joy, freedom, and love awaken through forgiveness. And I know of no other way to get there following a hurt or trauma than through forgiveness. There's no other way forward. And, we have to go through the process of grief.
Mm-hmm.
But, but any other route that we choose to take is only going to keep us stuck. So we have another slide here that I'll have you read.
All right. When we think of what it was done to us, it is normal to feel anger and bitterness. But when we choose to forgive, we find that new feelings begin to come to life, and these feelings deserve to be nurtured within us.
Yeah. So, we end up, it's kind of ironic at one level. but we end up punishing ourselves sometimes for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of our lives when we choose not to forgive,
Mm-hmm.
because we end up in that space where life is not good. I hate my life,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I just don't want to give anybody that much power in my life. You
Yeah.
know, you know, it's hard.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
I was just called to jury duty, and one of the things that it's a case that's involved. I think it's like a multiple murder and kidnapping, and the judge
Mm.
says that you have to be willing to look at some very disturbing photos and things like that. I don't know if I'm going to be dismissed or not yet. I have to report back later on in the month, but it's not just the victims, that there's a whole that kind of leaves a whole wake of chaos in other people's lives,
Mm.
the family
Yeah.
members of those victims, and and so forth, and even the people who are the perpetrators, that
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes their family is shocked that they would do such a thing, and
Yeah.
they're shamed about that. And
Yeah.
so it's easy to get lost in those feelings, and so we have to believe that this path that Jesus outlines for us
Mm-hmm.
is truly a path of resolution,
Yeah.
you know. So, but I have a question here I
Okay.
want to discuss with you, and that's just simply this: is that why are some people afraid to feel their feelings? What do you think?
Yeah. I think it's hard because um, a lot of emotions aren't fun to feel,
Yeah.
and they don't take you to a good place. And so, initially, it's really easy to just kind of stuff them and not have to deal with it because that's
Mm-hmm.
complicated. And I
Mm-hmm.
think also, too, we don't really get a lot of um, um, education or lessons on how to deal with our feelings
Yeah.
as we're growing up, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's no indictment on your parents, is it?
No, I think it's a cultural thing or maybe
Yeah.
a world thing, but, we
Yeah.
stick kids in school and we wanna teach them algebra. We won't teach them how to deal with, disappointment or
Yeah.
betrayal or loss or death or things like that, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
And that's good.
You don't need algebra so much most of the time, you don't need it, but, you do every single day you need to know how to handle disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is going to clobber you, you know, and we need to, and that's one reason why we as parents, that
Yeah.
we need to learn these skills in our own relationships,
Mhm.
because I always say you can only give what you've got.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to do this, your kids are going to be faced with the reality of where life clobbers them,
Yeah.
and then, you know, they get stuck in all of this stuff. So,
Yeah.
I think another reason why we don't, feel our feelings is the church. Is that a lot of times in churches is that people are shamed when they
Yeah.
are struggling with their anger or their hatred or their unforgiveness,
Mhm.
and they don't feel. It's interesting. They don't feel like church is a safe place to bring that into the light of community or the support of community, because
Yeah.
all you're going to get is judgment and shame. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
and
I
that's
think that's
go ahead.
true even just in life and in the world,
Mm-hmm.
you don't everybody's all everything's perfect and roses on social media and stuff,
Yeah.
and the reality is every single person that's posting is posting their highlight reel, you know,
Yeah. You know.
and it
So
makes your life seem like it's, just full of a lot of bad stuff when all you see is
mm,
everybody's good stuff.
Yeah, here's a good slogan to remember. Don't judge your insides by other people's outsides.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you see their highlight Instagram reel
Hmm.
versus the reality of your life.
Hmm.
And you say, man, I don't want my life. Yeah.
I want to just say one more thing is that when I
Mm-hmm.
was in a Bible study a long time ago, and we were, it was actually a pretty big sized group of women. And the lady who was the leader said, if everybody puts their problems right out into the middle of this room, like in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
this group, which problems are you going to pick up and take on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't want your problems. I
Yeah,
barely
really.
want my problems, but at least mine feel more comfortable than yours.
You can keep your own, thank you, please. So, right. So, let's look at another question here. So, when when it comes to feeling our feelings, particularly the strong and scary ones, what might help us to navigate this journey?
Yeah.
What do you
I think
think?
we need people in our lives who are real and
Mm-hmm.
who will walk alongside of us and help us out. I have a prayer partner that's helped me through just tons and tons of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that if I call her and say, hey, I need prayer, she's going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, you know, sometimes perspective is a good help because you can look back and go, yeah, I got through that last big hurt. You know, I'm going to get through this big hurt too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it can be extremely helpful, because having friends in our lives can be good. But sometimes friends, in their effort to be sympathetic, don't speak into our lives what we
Hmm.
need to hear.
Yeah.
You know, there's a passage of scripture in the book of Proverbs, Proverbs chapter 27, verse number 6, I believe it is. And it says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but profuse are the kisses of an enemy, you know. So,
Hmm.
and also, a lot of times our friends are just as ignorant as we are on how to navigate this journey of
Yeah.
forgiveness. So, so you may need friends, you may need prayer partners, you may even need your pastor and his support, you know,
Hmm.
or
Or all of
but
the
all of
above.
the above, or even a coach who understands us. Because, a lot of pastors, I've been a pastor for a long time, and I never received any training on how
Hmm.
to navigate people through these crazy times in their lives. And
Yeah.
so it was just something that I spent a lot of time and effort in listening to many, many experts and thinking seriously about it myself, that this is where I've landed on how to help people through the process. So let's talk just a little bit more, and then we're going to wrap this up. And I'm interested here, let's get this over here, is that typically what's underneath our anger or sadness? What's underneath our anger or sadness?
Yeah. Usually hurt is
Mm-hmm.
underneath your anger. Um, I say a lot of times, hurt people
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, they're not usually just angry to begin with. It's usually something that's happened to them that's made them that way. So,
Yeah.
um, and then also for both anger and sadness, a lot of times it's disappointment. You think
Mm-hmm.
things are going to go one way and then they don't go that way. So that's really easy to get, um, either sad or angry because of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think also that one of the things, yeah, I agree with you on that. And one of the things
Mhm.
is that, it's our losses. And we don't spend a
Mhm.
lot of time, and that's what's good, because our anger actually prevents us
Mm-hmm.
from moving into exploring those losses.
Yeah.
And I just read here recently about anger, and it said that anger is an isolating emotion, because when somebody's angry, it's hard to cuddle up with a porcupine. you know,
Yeah.
it's so when somebody's angry, it's hard to draw close to them. But when somebody is vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and they start sharing their heart and their hurts, then it's easier to move towards them in that. And so,
Yeah.
you know, um, we have to, as as caregivers, we have to understand how to redirect people from their anger and into their sadness,
Mm.
and into their sadness to exploring their losses, because you just cannot move forward as long, and the problem is that anger feels safe, because we feel like we won't be hurt like that again if I
Yeah.
just kind of like am very strong in my positions.
Mm-hmm.
But it just ends up destroying us. So
Yeah.
I really believe that coaching can help,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the things that we're seeking to offer folks here through New Destiny Coaching and our Beyond Betrayal program. And I think that working with another who understands the process of healing and growth and recovery can make a real difference
Yeah.
in people's lives. Before we wrap up here, Karen, is there anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I think it's important to go through the process, even if it's difficult to do. I'm working through trauma, and it's been like about almost a year since the initial kind of poop hit the fan, so to speak. And I still feel like that I'm digging my way out of this hole, and so
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
it will probably be a while yet, but at least I'm not sitting in the bottom of the pit.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and digging your way out of a hole is just not a good way to, not a good approach anyway. We got to find maybe some people who will throw down a rope, or or give you a ladder or something. But I know what you meant. So,
Yeah.
okay. Hey, I appreciate you, and sharing your story, and also talking a little bit with me today about these topics. One last
Yeah.
thing that I'd like to just say before we wrap up, and that's just simply this, is that forgiveness is the only good path forward. And it's what sets wounded hearts free. That there is no other way.
Hmm.
Man, if there was,
I'd take it.
yeah, really, you know, you know. So yeah. So hey, I appreciate you and your willingness to be a part of all of this.
Yeah.
And I just want to go ahead. You stay on. I'm going to wrap it up here with our viewers, and then we'll reconnect in just a minute. So hey, thank you guys for watching today, and we are just want to be able to help you on your journey in whatever way that we can. And we have this Beyond Betrayal program, and we've created a ton of resources that we're offering for free. And we also, but ultimately with our coaching services, those are paid services, just simply because that we have to be able to pay our bills somehow. But nevertheless, there's a great number of resources that we're making available to you, and I hope that you'll take advantage of it. Just on a personal note, I want to encourage you to to decide not to stay stuck and to believe that life can be good again. And even if your perpetrators or your offenders don't apologize or don't make amends or whatever else, is that you can get beyond betrayal by forgiving your offenders. I know it sounds offensive, but like I said, there's no other way forward. So I hope you'll join us for our next video as we work our way through these 10 steps on the journey to forgiveness. So that's it for now. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.